Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of USA Global TV and Radio. The content presented is for informational purposes only and is intended to foster open discussion and debate. Viewer discretion is advised. USA Global TV and Radio does not endorse any particular viewpoint and encourages viewers to seek out additional information and perspectives. Saving America with Dr. David D. Schein.
Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Welcome to Saving America. This is your host, Dr. David D. Schein. Trump nominations heat up the airwaves. What happens next? Given the ridiculous pack of losers Biden put on his team, including Harris and every one of his cabinet picks, it is incredible that anyone Trump has nominated could be worse than the best of the Biden clown show. This is a great article by Jack Helner in the American Thinker titled "A Deal That the Media and Other Democrats Shouldn't Be Able to Refuse." Doesn't mean they won't. How about a deal where the House will release the Matt Gaetz ethics report on the same day that, a little bit of a list here, folks, January 6th committee releases all the information and recordings for witnesses that they hid from the public. They should also send a list of all the documents they have destroyed. The FBI gives a full record of all the lies told to the FISA court to illegally spy on President Trump and his associates. The FBI hands over all the information they hid about Joe and Hunter Biden. The FBI releases the names of all the people they know who are related to Epstein, of course, Jeffrey Epstein, and his illegal activities. That's the child pedophile operation in New York and so forth. Adam Schiff shares all the fake evidence he accumulated when he ran the endless witch hunts of the Russian collusion lies. Maybe when Alejandro Mayorkas gives an actual count of how many gang members, terrorists, and other criminals have illegally crossed the border while he has maliciously claimed that the border is secure. Maybe when the CDC, Anthony Fauci, and the NIH tell us the truth about COVID and that Wuhan lab. It's about time that the House released all the names of the members of Congress whose sexual transgressions were paid off by taxpayers from the Me Too slush fund. The author then asked, wonder if any of the instances involve pages or interns. How many current members of Congress are on that list? Since 1997, the Office of Congressional Workplace Rights has paid out $18.2 million of taxpayer money to settle 291 cases of workplace disputes for Congress, the Capitol Police, the Architect of the Capitol, and the Library of Congress. Yes, the whack left loves disclosures when it applies to the other side, not them. Great list. Thanks to the American Thinker. Pete Hegseth's lawyer claims he was blackmailed during the Me Too movement. In a developing story related to my opening story, the wackos are going after Pete Hegseth, known today as a Fox News host and Trump's defense secretary pick. I note that I recognized his excellent military service in last week's Saving America. I also feel that the president needs to pick the right people with whom he can work. The U.S. military needs to cut the budget while ending the DEI and woke nonsense. America must be the preeminent military force in the world with its select allies in order to avoid World War III. And that is not hyperbole, folks. At the same time, I'm unhappy with the report and various news sources that an attorney for Hexas said an accuser was paid blackmail during the Me Too movement. I'm a hardcore and do not believe in paying blackmail. In fact, if the story is to be believed, in 2017, Pete gets blind drunk and a gal took him up to his own hotel room and may or may not have had sex with him. She later claimed assault, but never filed criminal charges. Most of my audience know that I'm what in the legal community would be called a hanging judge. Rape should be punished with long prison sentences. However, that is if it really was non-consensual. I look for credibility to the immediate reporting of the incident to the police and lab report documenting that an unwelcome sexual encounter took place. Coming around in 2020, 3 years later, making a civil claim for monetary damages causes me much concern. The report says a payoff was made following a confidential mediation. The facts behind this are blurred for both sides. I do not endorse getting drunk or irresponsible conduct. However, the description of this incident by itself would not cause me to block the recommendation of Trump for access. Inquiring minds would like to know if there are more stories like this. The Pentagon failed its 7th audit in a row. The DoD annual budget is reportedly $824 billion, making it second only to paying the interest on the national debt for the U.S. budget. The report comes just in time for a change in leaders and the now famous DOGE operation to make government more efficient. The DoD claims it will have a clean audit in 2028. Nonsense. They need to have a clean audit now and certainly by next year. The report is done by departments and reportedly 9 passed, 15 had some issues, 1 received some type of qualified opinion, and 3 had no report at all. For the future DoD head access, let's start with every department passing the next audit. A quick additional note on the DoD, I hear reports that the new administration is reviewing court-martial charges against the military leaders who handled the international disgrace of the exit from Afghanistan. My response is too little, too late. I also believe that this was solely on Biden and his MIA DoD head, Lloyd Austin, both of whom already have their pink slips for January 20th. Clearly, a massive house cleaning across every government agency needs to take place in any event. If at all possible, I do want the Biden operation fully investigated, but that is separate from the military. Biden going away gift to the world, an even more dangerous place. Let me count the ways. Biden's disastrous handling of the international scene directly contributed to the increasing threats from Red China, Putin, North Korea, and Iran. Parallel to this, BRICS is becoming a threat on the financial side. As an additional kick in the Uncle Sam's face, just in, Biden is on the far side of the back row of the official G20 meeting photo, while that murdering scumbag Z is in the center front. Time to put the adults in charge again. Just referring to Ukraine, things have gotten worse in the last 30 days. North Korea sent 10,000 troops to help Russia. This is a major uptick in this unjustified war. That means if North Korea continues to threaten the rest of the world, at a minimum, the USA would need to wipe both North Korea and critical targets in Russia off the map. That's not an exaggeration, folks. Yes, folks, could get real ugly real quick across the world. Biden's retaliation for North Korean involvement is to allow Ukraine to use U.S. long-range missiles to hit targets well into Russia, and that evil genius, not Putin, responds by suggesting the use of nuclear weapons. Folks, not a good outlook. Sadly, I doubt Trump can deliver on his specific campaign promise to end the Ukraine invasion in one day. Just not likely to happen. On the eve of this, Putin says his minimum demand is that Ukraine cannot join NATO and he gets to keep the valuable terrain he has already wrongfully seized. In the meantime, Russia is targeting energy assets inside Ukraine as the long, cold winter is about to hit there. I'd love to hear Trump's plan for digging out of this mess. I note that Nixon ran on getting us out of Vietnam in 1968. How did that work out for the Vietnamese people in the United States? So there is a report on X, formerly Twitter, that shows what is reportedly an official posting from Georgetown following Trump's recent victory. It references the McCourt School at Georgetown, which self-describes itself on X as, "We are a community of global citizens at Georgetown, conducting policy-relevant research and building bridges between our work and the communities we serve," end quote. So they announced a post-election self-care suite for students to deal with stressful times. I read from the posting. 10 to 11, tea, cocoa, and self-care. 11 to 12, Lego situation. 12 to 1, healthy treats and healthy habits. 1 to 2, coloring and mindfulness. Folks, remember, this is for a university, not a kindergarten. 2 to 3, milk and cookies, same reminder. 4 to 5, Legos and coloring. 5 to 6, snacks and self-guided meditation. Remember, as a Catholic school, they should have been for the party that opposes abortion as a routine form of birth control and certainly cannot endorse abortion up to the end of the 9th month and beyond. These are consistent planks in the Democrats' platform. What is going on that campus? Over 800 IRS employees owe millions in back taxes. In a special report from the Washington Examiner, apparently Senator Ernst requested an audit. Not sure of the trigger for this investigation. The stats are that the IRS says of 2,044 employees were reported to have balances totaling more than $12 million. 860 employees still have not paid their overdue taxes. So only 20 of the 70 employees who willfully evaded paying their taxes were removed. So that means 50 employees who willfully evaded taxes are still on the American payroll. Over 5,800 IRS and contractor employees owed nearly $50 million in overdue taxes. He's proposed a reform law to require an annual cleanup. That is long overdue. Generally, I am against the last 30 years of mergers and acquisitions that has dramatically reduced competition and innovation. There is a reason that we have antitrust laws. I need to say that because apparently both political parties and most federal judges have forgotten that. In any event, sometimes it does make sense. The geniuses working for the U.S. taxpayers turned down the proposed merger between successful JetBlue and struggling Spirit. So in turn, Spirit has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is called a reorganization plan. They have assured ticket holders that all tickets will be honored and they will keep flying. My immediate concern is that the feds increase safety inspections on the Spirit fleet to make sure there are no compromises there. Spirit's announced plan is supposed to have the restructuring process completed by March. Number one, for the saddest story of the week, according to news reports, 2 illegals, one of whom was wearing an ankle monitor to keep track of a potential criminal, apparently, assaulted and strangled to death a 12-year-old girl, dumped her body in a bayou here in Houston. This story has been in the news nationally. It is an extremely sad situation. Question, if they were here illegally and they were bad guys, why were they even let into the country? What ankle monitor? Why not toss them out right away? Or, as I frequently recommend, send them to Gitmo for a few years and let them understand what it's about to be isolated for the rest of the world. And maybe 5 or 10 years at Gitmo will help educate them to the importance of being part of civilization. Now, how can this not be the fault of Biden's open border policy? However, the moron, Lena Hidalgo, who is the county judge here in Harris County. Now, this is an honorary title. You're elected to it. You're supposed to be the chief administrator of the county. Harris County has set new lows in administration since she has been elected. She has nothing to do with being a judge, has no concept of justice, best I can tell. It's just a title. But she actually used the opportunity of this incredibly sad situation to criticize Donald Trump and to say, oh, since the ludicrously stupid bipartisan deal in the Senate didn't pass, that's somehow Donald Trump's fault, even though he is not holding elective office at the moment. And now, let's ask County Judge Hidalgo a few questions. If the legal system protected us, we would have less crime across the board, right? At the same time, if scum, drug dealers, terrorists, and human traffickers are stopped at the border, that additional crime would not happen. Right, Lena? A grade, on the other hand, to Jim McInville Gallery Furniture, a solid conservative who is paying for the little girl's funeral. And we salute him for that. The Communist Party of China, also known as the CCP, continues its persecution of the spiritual group Falun Gong. This is one of the most compelling and disturbing situations across civilization in the whole world today. Communists like Xi don't like religions or quasi-religions competing with their Communist Manifesto. That includes a pretty harmless sect called Falun Gong, which started around 1992. They follow 3 truths: compassion, forbearance, and do 5 meditative exercises of their practice each day. By now, 70 to 100 million Chinese have begun to follow this pretty simple concept. It sounds a lot like Buddhism and Hinduism, which of course are very popular within various Asian cultures around the world. So in 1999, the geniuses at the CCP decided to eradicate Falun Gong. Now remember, this is 70 to 100 million people. They've been using illegal arrest, brainwashing, and torture, and perhaps the most horrible thing yet, harvesting organs from live prisoners. Yes, our ineffective U.S. Department of State says it's opposing these inhuman practices. To date, the only thing I've seen them do is to block importation of Chinese human organs, since they may be the result of this practice. To me, it stinks of the Holocaust all over again. They claim, this is the State Department, to talk with the CCP. This is a silly statement, and I don't know why we're still talking to them. The civilized world needs to seal off the CCP until they change their approach to both their own citizens and the rest of the world. They're becoming a very dangerous force in the world, and that's one of our central themes here for Saving America, because it also helps to save the world if we can rein in the craziness that's going on over there. In the United States, there is a group called Friends of Falun Gong. It's a nonprofit that was founded in the year 2000. I encourage you to check them out. I've extended invitation for a representative to be interviewed for Saving America. Special report in the Daily Signal, among other sources, details the growing tragedy of missing migrant children. I have read estimates of up to 320,000 missing. Speaking as a parent and a grandparent, even one missing child is awful. However, these numbers are stunning. They have become dramatically worse due to the open borders of the Biden-Harris administration. A major concern is the physical and sexual abuse or forced labor of these children who are being illegally trafficked into the U.S. One report mentioned a party in one state has had over 300 children released to just that one party, with zero accountability. Over 32,000 minors have failed to appear in court, and, quote, as of May 2024, ICE has not served NTAs, notices to appear, on more than 291,000 unaccompanied children. What is our government up to? What is the Department of Homeland Security up to? Where are these children? Senator Mike Lee, Republican from Utah, told the Daily Signal, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris utter incompetence to secure a southern border is indistinguishable from federally subsidized human trafficking. Countless children are being harmed by the broken system perpetuated and celebrated by the Democratic Party. They simply do not care because their mission is to erode the sovereignty and voting power of the American citizens, no matter who gets hurt. The bottom line is that the systems in place in the U.S. simply cannot handle the volume of minors coming in. This has allowed the exploitation that has been documented in far too many reports. Our series of interviews for Saving America establishes that the world is full of interesting people. Once you hear from our next guest, I'm sure that you'll agree that he deserves the moniker of an interesting person. Saving America welcomes Eric M. Walwent, and who, after losing 3 jobs, bought his first rental property with the last of his money. In the next 2 years, he and his wife rehabbed, rented, and refinanced 20 units to become financially free by the time he was only 30. Since then, they have rehabbed and repositioned over 1,000 more units. They have consolidated their various coaching and other activities under Clear Sky Training Limited. He and his family have 4 best-selling books and own and operate multiple businesses. They do this and still spend half their time traveling and speaking all over the world. Using what he teaches, both of his kids started buying real estate when they were 7 years old without their parents' money or credit. Eric and his family host the Real Power Family radio program, which is on the Brushwood Media Network. Their most recent book is Family Success Triangle, Be, Do, Have. We had to shorten this bio so we'd have time for the interview itself. We welcome Eric M. Walwent for his first appearance on Saving America.
Thank you so much, Dr. Schein. It is a pleasure to be here.
And it's a pleasure to have you over here. As you know, we ask our guests 3 questions. So the first one is, so many people face tough challenges like losing 3 jobs in a row, and then they just give up. What made you different? Why? And also, why real estate versus some other form of business?
When I graduated at 17, did a year of college, and then joined the Army so I could pay for college. It was always beat into me that you have to do this. And we didn't look at the ROI of actually getting a degree. I just blindly went where my parents had taught me my whole life to go. After that, I realized, man, this is hard. I got to pay for this. I can't even get enough loans, and I'm working 3 jobs. I never considered giving up. So I joined the Army, did 4 years active duty, ended up 13 years total. And in that time frame, I was a platoon sergeant. I was a medic in the Army. I was treating people. I had 40 guys working for me. I had 12 ambulance squads that were running 24 hours a day. And the bottom line is, as a platoon sergeant, if I made bad decisions, people could die. As a medic, if I made bad decisions, people could die. So you ask, how did I go and not give up? I never considered giving up. It didn't matter what happened. Most of my adult life at that point in time, if I made a bad decision or if I just gave up, people would die. And so I just never gave up. I don't know how to give up. Even today, I can't imagine walking away and giving up from something.
Well, it's pretty fascinating. But the second part of my question is, why real estate once you got into your own business versus something else?
That is not a simple question. I knew how to work with my hands. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yes. Right before I lost my last job, I decided to buy my first rental property. And about the same time as I got fired, I got it rented. So I finally got my first check, and definitely not 2 before I lost that job. But it wasn't enough to make the payment on having another vacant house. I couldn't even make the payment on my own house. And, I'm counting on people paying rent, and my wife is making $8.50 an hour. So there's no way we're living off of that. And I just decided, you know what? If we're going to do this, I've lost 3 jobs in 2 years, and each one I immediately came back. I got a better job paying me twice as much money, give or take, within a few weeks of losing the one before that. And I just decided I'm done. I'm not going to get another job ever. I am going to start my own business. It is going to be involve real estate, and I would just like to buy houses, fix them up, and rent them out. And that has evolved into 18 different businesses, including multiple holding companies, a construction company, a real estate brokerage, a little bit of lending, and a bunch of training companies, multiple books, a radio show. But it all stems from that first decision of trying to create a better life for my family. And I just happen to choose real estate as the vehicle to do it.
Well, that's a fantastic story, and I'm sure it'll inspire our audience. And our second question is, your current book is Family Success Triangle, Be, Do, Have. Share with our audience how this book will help them with raising their children, which I thought was kind of an interesting approach.
As I said, as a sergeant in the Army, I had plenty of people working for me, and I took care of them. Frequently, they were older than me. I got promoted very rapidly. And yet, it's kind of like raising kids or taking care of, protecting your children. You want to push them. You have to get the job done. And at the same time, you want to put them in as little harm as possible or in the way. And that's not always easy in the jobs that we did. I mean, I was an airborne sapper, jumped out of airplanes, blew stuff up. So not everything is, quote, safe. You're not ever secure. And here I go on a tangent. I always do this. Could you tell me the question again?
Sure. And we want you to talk about your current book because
the book. Yeah, sorry
about
how
that fits in with raising kids, which I thought was an interesting approach. Okay.
After leading troops in the Army and then starting businesses and hiring people, I looked after these people the same way I did in the Army. And then I finally had children last. And there's very little difference. If you can be a good leader, you can be a good father. And I know my kids will probably say I'm a little bit too militant, a little bit too much of a drill sergeant, and that may be. And they get incredibly good results. I mean, they're right now, as we record this, they're recording their own radio show that'll go out to millions of people without any adults. It's just the two teenagers talking. So
Excellent.
I have instilled good values in them. And the most important of those values, I wrote my perception of what that should be in my book, Family Success Triangle. And then the second half of the chapter, my wife wrote her perception of what it should be. And you can see sometimes we're completely aligned and sometimes we're way off base. We come in wildly different, but we all have the same basic morals and ethics. And that's what we taught our children. That's what I put into my book. And it really doesn't matter if you're running a business, if you have trouble with employees, or if you're a sergeant in the Army, or just a father or a mother. The same basic principles can guide you through everything. That's why I wrote the book, Family Success Triangle.
Sounds great. And speaking of radio shows, our third question is, you've got your whole family doing a program on Brushwood called Real Power Family Radio Show. Tell us a little bit about that show and what are you trying to do for your audience?
I'm trying to make their world a better place. Every single day we end with use what you learned here today to make the world a better place. From the time my first son, Devin, was born, I think the first couple of weeks of his life, I told him, I want you to go out and change the world. And then I realized there's very bad people in the world that change it for the worse. So I changed what I was saying because I think words have power. They're very important to use exactly the right word. That is the problem with the governments and the media today. They're changing the definitions of words. So when I say something, I am very specific. And I told Devin, go out. I want you to go to sleep. I love you. And I want you to dream about making the world a better place. And I have said that to him for 17 and a half years of his life. And the 14 or 15-year-old, at least in a couple of weeks, he'll be 15. I've said it every night of his life. I love you. I want you to go to sleep and dream about making the world a better place. That is what I want to do, not just for our family, not just for my city or state or even the America. I want to give the information that people need to make the world better. I want them to step back and see and not be controlled by emotions and especially not fear. I want them to form a good, hopefully a family unit, or you get your tribe together, whatever that tribe, whatever that group is, and you help each other. And that will make everybody's world better. And when you get good at that, and you have a nice, strong family or a strong group of people, then take it to the next level and help the next level to get bigger. And I find that writing books and having my own radio show is the best way to do these things and reach the most amount of people.
Well, that's fascinating. And of course, it makes you a perfect interview for Saving America, because part of our objective is to make America better. And I think if we make America better, that will help to make the world better. How can our audience get more information about you, your family, and your various activities? Where's the best places to look?
I am the father of the Real Power Family. You can type Real Power Family anywhere. We're on the Brushwood Media Network. We're on YouTube. I think we're on TikTok, Facebook. If you type it in, my name, Eric M. Woolman, on LinkedIn, I'm there. And we all have our own X accounts and LinkedIn accounts. But just Real Power Family. It's always about the family. It's not just me. It's not just my wife. It is about the group working together that makes us all stronger.
Fantastic. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Eric M. Woolman. The American higher education system is in trouble. It is time for the leaders of higher education in the United States to take stock and work on absolutely necessary reforms, or you face having it closed down. I'll speak for myself first. I came from an economically challenged background. What did I have going for me? Number one, parents who were encouraging me like crazy to focus on schoolwork. Neither one of them got past high school. And then a first-class K through 12 experience, K through 8 in a Catholic grammar school under the old system with mostly nuns teaching. Heavy duty focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic. Gee, what an idea. And then after that, very good public high schools. So the teachers were committed to education. None of this union nonsense, none of this, gee, we'll go on strike. None of this will close the classroom or don't show up if you're not wearing a mask. We've got to get past that in America, folks. So I did well enough to get a full scholarship to a Ivy League college. I later realized full scholarship is not exactly a ticket to ride. I did have to have federal loan money, and I also had to work all the time that I was in college. Nothing exciting about that. That's still pretty much true today. I did find that the Ivy League school that I went to was already contaminated with leftists and commies. The positive was that I was mostly taking science and business courses that had not yet been polluted by this movement to the left. And so I made out okay. Plus, the other thing I want people to understand is because of my solid parenting and solid lower grade education, I already had a good ability to think. I was not influenced by leftist professors. I knew the difference. I knew who had their heads screwed on right, and we work from that standpoint. And I think that's important also. So, it's part of the way this thing works. But over my life, I've earned a BA at the Ivy League school, an MBA, a law degree, and a PhD. And that PhD, I went back 25 years later after a successful legal career in order to enter higher education as a professor. I've put in my time, I've worked my butt off, I've done my publications, and I've made it to a full professor level, which was my objective when I went to get my PhD some years ago. For me, education was that pathway to a real and rewarding life. And I've been able to share that with my children and hopefully my grandchildren. And that's what's important to me. And I think that the value of education, at least in my book, is not hard to understand. But we've got a lot of folks out there saying that college education is no longer valuable. Well, what are some things that could be done to move forward and to be sure that that path is well done and is valuable? But let me quickly provide a disclaimer. Not everybody needs to go to college, and not everybody needs to go to college directly out of high school. Sons took time off before they went to college. When they did hit college, they hit it with a vengeance, and they both, I'm proud to say, did very well. So that sometimes a little break in the action helps. What do we need to do now? Number one, woke classrooms must go. The real world is not woke. Anyone who tries to claim there are more than two genders, for instance, needs to be tossed out of higher ed. Communist teachers, this is America. It is success is based on capitalism. Every failed government in the world has failed due to corruption and communism. Let's get straight, folks. There's not a diversity of opinion that we need to have on this particular issue. The commies have lost, and they've lost consistently throughout the world. And if they ever gain control of the world will have lost. Every civilization, Venezuela, the USSR, Cuba, represent failed countries, people without freedoms, a lack of invention, a lack of economic success. Let's not fool ourselves on that. Number three, no connection of higher ed in many cases to the real world. Even if you are being taught literature, drama, or theology, there must be a target for the use of that education. Where will these students be in their studies? And think about it. A 20-year-old or 22-year-old today very likely will work for the next 45 to 50 years doing what, using what skills. Go woke, go broke, and that includes students. Number four, we've got to focus on intolerance. Intolerance across the board is what we're seeing in many institutions of higher education. In fact, many of the highest rated in the past. And I say in the past because again, I'm a vocal critic of Harvard. I don't think it is the school that its reputation had brought it to. And I think that's a very important consideration. Can it regain it? It has billions and billions and billions of dollars in its endowment. The answer is yes, it can regain that position, but it needs to get its head straight and along the lines of what I'm talking about in this particular episode. Educated people like myself were exposed to everything. We didn't have to like it, but we knew what it was. We did not cry in the corner. We did not attack teachers who disagreed with us. Adults understand that there are many points of view. This does not mean a student has to adopt the garbage from the left, but we certainly need students to see and understand all different points of view. Number five, lack of return on investment. Parents who send their kids to major in vague subjects like gender studies, communications, that doesn't have a focus on PR marketing and so forth, are indeed wasting time and money. We are in a business. Call them the minimum wage workers for the future. If they do not have a focus in college and take the courses that will direct them towards some specific type of activity. For instance, most grads with a psychology undergraduate degree will need to have a master's degree to get a decent job. Accept that up front. Again, I have close friends who are clinical psychologists, 6 years post-BA in order to practice their profession. It's part of the deal. I have numerous friends in human resources, psychology undergraduate degree, and then advanced training in human resources. Great HR people, but there's a focus there. Don't expect it to be delivered with the bachelor's degree. Number five, Complaints about costs while teacher salaries wither away. Oddly enough, the major complaint about college is that it costs too much. Well, guess what? We faculty are not even keeping up with the last decade's cost increases, much less the radical inflation of Bidenomics. A lot of the cost today is for non-classroom staffing and expenses. Time to examine varsity athletics and government mandates just to get started. Eliminating the U.S. Department of Education, which has been frequently mentioned by conservative advocates, certainly sounds like a good idea to me. And you say, what about standards? States can establish standards, and I don't think that the U.S. Department of Education has done anything other than make education more expensive. And I'm very critical of college athletics. Probably the most extreme example is that the Texas A&M University just fired its head football coach, and according to media reports, they owe him a payout of $76 million. Guess what, folks? That is barely less than the entire endowment of the small college where I teach. Yes, folks, ludicrous situations are happening in athletics. It's time to re-examine what we do. And by the way, I am a supporter of what are called intramural athletics. Students can play sports for fun. What's wrong with that? We, the American people, must demand our college education system that supports our society. Support schools that do that, and stop sending your money and your kids to schools that do not provide a return on investment. Saving America welcomes Kevin McDonald. Born and raised in Seattle, Kevin is a self-described, jovial, fun-loving man who has experienced life in a big way. He has been a star athlete, actor, restaurateur, sales and sales manager, transit operator, audio producer, talk show host, creative consultant, motivational leader, and podcast host. He is the creator and host of KM Media Pro. He produces and hosts engaging podcasts that cover a wide range of topics. I know him from his Positive Talk radio show, which is on multiple networks, including Brushwood Apple, where his mission is to create positive and uplifting podcasts that inspire and empower people to achieve their goals and dreams. Our series of interviews for Saving America establishes that the world is full of interesting people. We welcome Kevin McDonald for his first appearance on Saving America.
Thank you, sir. I love to be here. This is going to be fun.
I'm looking forward to it. As you know, we ask our guests 3 questions, and the first one is, tell our audience how you went from star athlete to producing and hosting podcasts. That sounds like a non sequitur.
Well, I was too short to go pro, but I enjoyed my time as an athlete and was a boxer for a period of time and all that kind of stuff. And then I went into the restaurant business and restaurant sales, and I may be the only chicken salesman you've ever met.
Tell me more about the chicken.
I worked for a company out of Siloam Springs, Arkansas. And we talked, and it was a vertically integrated chicken company. And I traveled the country and sold chicken products to large restaurants and TGI Fridays and Old Spaghetti Factory and a bunch of them. And but there was a point in time, David, when I thought to myself, why am I really here? What's my mission? There's got to be more to it than what I've been told. I had the house, had the dog, had the cat, had the wife, and had the kids. They're all gone now, but I really wanted to understand why I was really here. And one thing led to another, and I got back into radio, which I'd done in college years before. I love it. I just can't stop doing it. It's kind of like a bag of potato chips.
Now, I've got to sneak in here a little quick mini question. Okay, you listed the wife after the cat and the dog. Is that why she's no longer there?
Well, I had to bury all three of them in the backyard. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
The FBI don't come see me, but 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 no, she decided that there were greener pastures elsewhere. If you
okay. Well, we won't get too far down that trail. By the way, I have worked with a company in Houston as an attorney that took boxes of chicken and took the skin and the bones out of the parts and then delivered smaller boxes to restaurants for immediate use.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so it was very interesting. I actually was in their production room, which was a refrigerated chamber where people stood in a line and did the work. They had an interesting problem. They put the skin and the bones in big 55-gallon drums, and they were picked up twice a week. One day, the truck picking up the waste dumped one of the barrels in the middle of the street. So the people did the logical thing. They went out, scooped up the waste, put it back in the bucket, put the bucket back in the waiting for the next pickup truck. And then they rinsed down the street because chicken stuff is slippery. It could cause a car accident. Do you know that the city filed a criminal complaint against them for washing the street?
You're kidding.
They washed the chicken's waste into the gutter. So I do not do criminal law, so I had to refer them to another attorney to represent them. So they paid a $500 fine and kept on boogieing. And today that is, because it was here in the urban area of the historic Houston Heights, that is now a housing a high-end housing project. Chicken parts production has now been moved out to the woods somewhere.
Well, somebody had way too much time on their hands.
Yeah, there was a neighbor who didn't like the fact that he had bought a house next to the chicken factory. And you know what? The chicken factory had been there since the 1920s.
He probably should have fired his real estate agent and got another one because they kind of told him, you're going to have chicken parts next to you.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we're going to try and keep this on track. Question number 2, in reviewing your main website, I came across Think Energy. Share with our audience how that differs from your other work and efforts.
In addition to, well, originally I started with a show called Spirit Talk because we wanted to talk about energy and our bodies and our chakras and how that all works. And so I had psychic mediums on and psychics and energy workers and healers and stuff because I was really interested in the energy that we all have that is part of who we really are. And so I had to divide that show up because I have a staff, and the people in my staff said, you can't do positive energy kind of stuff when you're doing positive talk kind of stuff. They're two different things. So I divided them up, but I still have a love for psychic mediums, and I talk to my dad, my mom all the time, and all that kind of stuff. They're both passed on and that kind of thing. So it's just something that kind of a hobby that I'm interested in.
Well, you may find it interesting that I also am have people in my life who clearly have some psychic visions. Mine personally tend to be about me and what's going to happen in the future and things like that. And sometimes people get very upset. I have some evangelical friends who get very upset. And I'm like, I'm not sure how someone perhaps having visions of the future or the past would in any way be a contradiction of a religious belief. But in any event, I don't get into big arguments with them. But the people that I know who are appear to have some psychic energy are God-fearing people. They're not satanic or anything, but it's very interesting area. And of course, unfortunately, they're running a special on one of the cable channels right now of Miss Cleo, the famed con artist. And unfortunately, that doesn't help anybody, when you have people who are taking advantage of the situation.
That's a really good point, David, is that be careful because there are people that are going to try and make money from you, and it's like, do you remember the movie Ghost?
Yes,
Whoopi
certainly.
Goldberg character.
Yeah.
That she was pretended to be a psychic, but she was fake. So just be careful and get a referral, and from somebody that's been with them before. It's like I've interviewed John Edward and
Mhm.
several folks like that who are really, really, really talented. If we had more time, I'd tell you the story about John Edward, but I know we don't. So we're good.
All right. Well, speaking of time, let's pop to question number 3. Please share with the audience your approach to your positive talk radio, which of course we have the headline behind you. How do you select your guest, and what's the point of the show?
Point of the show is primarily is to answer the question that we all have at one point in our life. I know you're on your third career now, and we all have a point in time where we say, why am I really here? What am I really here to do? I'm not here just to, sell chicken in my case, or be a district sales manager or whatever. I'm here to affect the planet in a positive way, I think. And so, in order for me to activate that, I started Positive Talk Radio way back in 2003, when, as you were talking about evangelicals, in those days, meditation was something that you didn't do. Yoga was something that you didn't do. Those are now mainstream activities. But over time, I fell back into broadcasting, and the purpose of the show is to show everybody by the interviews that we do that you can be more than you think you can be. You can be anything you want to be. And if you choose to write a book or create a song or to be a coach and to help other people, and regardless of what you're doing, if you're doing it for the right reasons, then you get to be on my show if you want to be.
Well, that sounds great. Have you had a particular guest recently who really stood out? Somebody you said, darn, that's a really interesting person.
Today, as a matter of fact, her name is Michelle Blood. She is a singer-songwriter from Australia, and she was in a near fatal traffic accident.
Wow.
And she used affirmations, positive affirmations, to heal. And she spent the rest of her life working with people like Bob Proctor and Wayne Dyer and some of the greats of the New Thought movement to really help people recognize that they could be more than they think they can be. Because, we were born great, David. I'm going to get on my soapbox if you don't mind. We were all born great, every one of us. But we spend our lives being told by other people, hey, David, you ain't so great. You got a lot of problems. And so what we're trying to let people know is you are great. Own it, live it, love it, and take care of each other and be kind to one another. That's really the premise of the show.
I love the point about being kind to each other, because we certainly have a lack of just basic courtesy and kindness and all that. By the way, you are the first person to mention Wayne Dyer's name in ages, and I have a very interesting connection to him. When I went to work on my MBA, I went to the Virginia Darden School to do a full-time MBA. They introduced a class that was a new discipline. It was called organizational behavior, which is a very basic course in MBA programs today, but they were inventing it. They didn't have a textbook yet. So they had a book called I'm Okay, You're Okay, a bestseller by Wayne Dyer. And it's kind of interesting because I just find it interesting what we worked with in mid-1970s and what it has developed into with these big long textbooks and all that. And frankly, I was perfectly fine with I'm okay, you're okay. And I like the upbeat approach and the application of it. So I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and just as an aside, I end every show with be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. And the whole premise of, and I forgot to mention I was also a bus driver for 12 years. And when you're
I missed that in your bio.
It was getting too long. But when you're a bus driver and you get to talk to all kinds of people, I'd been in the corporate world, and like you, I've talked to people that are vice presidents and making, 6 figures and 7 figures and playing golf in hoity-toity golf courses and having $400 and $500 dinners. And then I ended my working career before I started the podcast by driving a bus where people couldn't afford $2 for bus fare.
Incredible.
I learned that we are all one, we are all together, and that we have individual life experiences, but we can be whatever we choose to be.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a great way to wrap up this interview. Kevin, tell people how our audience can get more information about you.
If you want, well, you can talk to my ex-wife, and she'd have lots of things to say that might not necessarily be all that flattering, mind you. No, Kevin@kmmedia.pro. That's my personal email, and you can do that. You can also listen to the Brushwood Media Network. We're on at 5 p.m. Monday through Friday and at midnight Monday through Friday, and we have all kinds of interesting people, and you're going to be on that show one of these days fairly soon, and we've got something that may be coming up soon that we can't talk about yet, but we'll talk about it later, kind of thing.
Sounds like a winner to me. Business students, business persons, or consumers, business law impacts much of what you do. This segment is designed to help you get past the headlines on key stories. Lawsuit against Elon Musk for buying votes has been tossed. Unless some of my listeners have been really ignoring the news, they are aware that the entrepreneur Elon Musk, in what some would consider a surprise move, decided to back former President Trump. He has done rallies and been a visible supporter since then. In a truly unusual move, Musk announced that those who signed a petition supporting the First and Second Amendments to the Constitution would be entered into a raffle for a $1 million prize. This odd promotion was only run in so-called swing states. A resident of California, Aaron Greenspan, who founded the company Plainsight, sued to stop the promotion. His company's website's headline is, "We're putting the law in plain sight." The site claims to explain how the entire legal system works. In any event, Greenspan's suit was an emergency motion for temporary restraining order and permanent injunction against defendant Elon Musk. The suit also alleged RICO and other violations. The legal action was seeking to prevent Musk from violating the law against paying people to either register to vote or to vote. The district court in California denied the motions by Greenspan. First, the court held that since the raffles were taking place in other states, not California, he had no standing to even file the suit. Further, the offer by Musk was for signing a petition supporting constitutional amendments, not for registering to vote or for voting. An article about the suit in the Epoch Times noted that Musk's political action committee, not him personally, gave away $1 million to a Wisconsin man and $1 million more to a Michigan man as part of the raffle. Folks, I don't make this stuff up. I just report it. Now, there's been another case filed against the use of this particular procedure, again, alleging that it's paying people to register to vote. But again, if it is the same petition that just supports the First and Second Amendment, I predict that case will have the same outcome. We close with some good financial news for Texas. Saving America recently hailed Chevron's moving its corporate headquarters to Texas. Well, there are also many financial firms that are finding a friendly and less expensive base in the Lone Star State. Household names like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and Wells Fargo are making major moves in Texas. One statistic is Dallas is second only to New York City in the number of people employed in the financial sector. Thanks for joining me for Saving America. If you have questions or comments, please find me on various social media sites. I'm Dr. David D. Schein, and I will see you next week.
Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.